We have these stories running in the background of our minds, and um, we often, like I said, we often don't even realize that these stories are there, right? And then we use our emotional guidance system, if you will, our emotions, to understand that when we have negative emotion, it's an indicator that our soul is calling bullshit on us. We talked about that yesterday. Um, and that's kind of the place where you stop and you go, okay, so I'm believing something that's not true for me, right? And and then what do you do with that? You have to create a new belief. A thought that you keep thinking becomes a belief, right? So you've got to start with this negative feeling, and what are you feeling? Um, what story are you telling yourself, and what do you want the story to be instead, so that you can create your experiences based on what I'm trying to not have the light like blinding in behind me. So what's the new story that you want to tell? What's the new outcome that you want? How do you want it to be different? And I know that I spent a really huge part of my life, especially my adult life, but even to some degree my childhood, but in that like same shit, different day paradigm over and over again. It just felt like I can't get my head above water. I can't get a break, one thing after another, putting out fires all the time. Can't possibly juggle any more balls because I've dropped most of the balls that I have already. And it's a terrible feeling. It's a terrible feeling to be overwhelmed and feel like you just can't get out ahead of anything. And I think for me, one of the stories that I was telling myself that led me to that place of overwhelm was that this is the way it has to be. Like, I looked around at all of my tangible circumstances and said, well, geez, I'm a single mom. I don't make a whole lot of money. I have 4 kids, not just one, but 4, several of them with various mental health diagnoses. And I had exes that sometimes were paying and sometimes weren't paying child support. I had a family that I had convinced myself was that loved me very much, but just didn't know how to support me the right way. And so I had all of these stories playing in the background, and they made perfect sense to me. And other people that I talked to confirmed that this is how it has to be. Of course, it's a struggle. You have X, Y, and Z going on in your life. Of course it's hard. You have all of these different circumstances at play. Of course it's hard. Of course it's hard. Of course it's hard. And that was the story that I lived with for so long. And it becomes exhausting after a while, right? Like at some point I had to say to myself, really? Is this really as good as it gets? And as I started, in my coaching journey, and I started learning about spirituality, and I started learning about energy, and I started learning about vibration and how thoughts create things, and, all of these other sort of pieces of the work that I do, I started realizing that, well, maybe it doesn't have to be this way. Maybe it doesn't have to be this way. And I started to see other people that were succeeding, that were living a life that I wanted to live. And I had to, at some point, admit to myself that if it's possible for other people, it has to be possible for me. Like it just can't be true, ultimately, absolutely true, that this is how it has to be forever. And at that point, I realized I had to write a new story. I had to decide how I wanted it to be, and I had to get my energy lined up with my new story. And in writing a new story is the easy part. That's the easy part. That's the part where I decide what I want it to be. How do I want it to be? Well, I want it to be easy. I want to have a great relationship with my kids. I want to be present with my kids. I have literally years of time that I vaguely remember because I was so stressed in my everyday life that I couldn't focus on what was happening in the moment, and milestones for my kids, and important or special memories, that we were theoretically making together that are completely blocked out of my mind because I was so worried and stressed and not present in the moment with them that I can't even remember what happened. It's like a void in my head, right? So I had to decide that for me, it's going to be easy. I'm going to have good relationships with my kids. I'm going to be present with them. I'm going to enjoy the moment rather than worrying about the future or feeling ashamed or upset about the past. I'm going to find a way to support myself without working so many hours a week all over the place and not feeling excited about my work. Even when I wasn't working 40 or more hours a week, I was exhausted all the time because I didn't love my work. So that was something that I decided was going to change too, is I get to love my work. I get to be paid to do what I love. And that was a story I wrote. So changing the story is technically the easy part. You just decide, what do you want? How do you want it to be different? What does it get to be for you? And literally, we can get hung up on this because we start to doubt that what we want our new story to be is possible. This is the hard part, is releasing that doubt, right? Like, it's easy to say right off the cuff, like, I want life to be easy. I want to make enough money so that I don't ever have to worry, so that I never have to say no, so that I can take vacations. Whatever it is that you want. I'm going to sneeze. Sorry. Sorry. Deciding what you want is the easy part, and that usually comes to us really quickly. Like, I know what I want. I want to be rich. I want to fall in love with somebody. I want to buy a house. I want a new car. And then immediately we kill it with our doubt. We squash it. We're like, well, yeah, I want a new car, but my credit sucks and I don't make a lot of money and I can't afford a new car payment. So we bring all of these limits into the new story and we squash it. And so then we create this continuous loop of not having what we want because we know we want it, and then we squash it with our doubt, right? So the hard part here is knowing what you want and lining your energy up, lining your beliefs and your thoughts up with the new story, convincing yourself that you get to have it. And there's a lot of reasons we think we can't have what we want. And we have all of these tangible reasons, right? Like, oh, I don't have enough money. My credit sucks. I can't afford that. Whatever it is. I need to lose weight before I can find somebody to fall in love with. Whatever it is. Like, I don't know, you name it. It's out there. Someone's thought it. But the work is getting to believe that that's possible for you. That's the part that takes a while. A lot of times, especially if it's a desire that we really want. Something that we truly want means that we don't have, means more likely than not there's a lot of resistance built up against that desire, which means there's a lot of beliefs and stories that we're holding on to that tell us we can't have that desire. So the work in this is a couple of things. One, look for evidence that it's possible for somebody else. If it's possible for someone else, it's possible for you. Nobody in this world is created better than anybody else. So if someone else can have it, you can too, regardless of the circumstances. That's the biggest crutch that we lean on, is look at my circumstances. It's because of these circumstances that I can't have what I want. And that's complete victim mentality bullshit. Honestly, complete victim mentality bullshit. It's a lack mentality, and it's complete crap. People have risen from all sorts of circumstances to attain all sorts of goals and desires throughout the history of time. So to sit around in your circumstance and say, I can't have it because of my circumstance is complete bullshit. So you need to let that go. Your circumstances are not dictating it. Now, look at whether you think you're worthy. That's another big sticking point for people is, I want this, but somewhere in my subconscious mind, I don't believe I deserve to have it. Maybe you cheated on a spouse in the past and now you don't believe you deserve love in the future. Maybe you had an abusive upbringing, parents that were abusive or someone that was abusive to you. And so now you have this subconscious belief that you're not worthy of love. These are things that we need to deal with. And I'm not saying, as I never do, to dig down deep and pick at the wound until it's disgusting and festering. No, like I'm not telling you to go back in time and try to rework everything that's happened. But you got to start someplace deciding that you get to be worthy. You get to be worthy because why wouldn't you be worthy? Why aren't you? Like, answer that question for yourself. Journal that out for a while. What makes me not worthy? Everything about you is worthy. Everything about you is worthy, right? And if you find answers to that question, what makes me not worthy? If you write down answers to that, challenge them. You've got to be willing to challenge yourself. You've got to be willing to see things differently. You can't continue to look at things the same and expect a different outcome, right? It's just not going to happen. So you've got to be willing to do the work. You've got to be willing to challenge the idea that your circumstances require you to have a specific life. That's complete bullshit. If you want it, it's yours and your circumstances don't matter. You can move around that. And how do you do that? You line your energy up with what you want. You line your beliefs up with it. You've got to feel worthy of what you want. And the other piece of this is you've got to feel safe receiving what you want. I know that I have, and it's something that I work on all the time. It's a money story for me. It's a limiting belief about money for me. When I was a kid, my mom died in a plane accident. And because of her, as a result of her death, I inherited a large, large, large sum of money. And now I associate receiving money with losing my mom, which is wretched, right? So for many years, I repelled money. Literally, if I ever got large sums of money, which I did a lot, surprisingly, I would receive large sums of money and it would be gone in no time because I have this like deep rooted story. I wouldn't know when I say deep rooted. Let me rephrase that. I have this belief with a lot of momentum behind it that receiving money is associated with losing people that I love, right? Or my mom specifically, but she's gone now. So other people that I love, right? So I have to constantly be working on that belief about my money story, that it's safe for me to receive money, because if I don't feel safe receiving money, if I don't feel like it's safe to receive money and the people that I love are safe, even though I'm receiving money, then of course I'm not going to allow money to come into my experience. I'm going to block it at every turn because nobody wants to be in that position where, oh yay, well I have, millions of dollars, but my mom just died. That's like, nobody wants to be there. But it's a false belief. It's a limiting belief to think that if I receive money, somebody has to die. Like, that's craziness. Obviously, it's craziness. People receive large sums of money all the time and nobody dies, right? I need to shift that belief, and it's something that I'm constantly working on because it is, it's decades old and it has a lot of momentum behind it and it has a lot of emotion behind it. So it's something that I'm constantly working on. But this is an example of, you have to feel safe. You can't blame your circumstances. You have to feel worthy and you have to feel safe getting what you want. And if you're missing any part of those three things, you've got to do the mindset work. You've got to do the journaling. You've got to do the meditating. You've got to do affirmations that you believe, right? My whole thing with affirmations is affirmations are great And you have to use affirmations that you actually believe, because if you don't believe that they're possible, if you don't believe your affirmations are possible for you, they're not going to work. They're going to backfire on you. So start with general, broad affirmations that you can believe, and get more specific as you increase that positive momentum towards what you want with regards to affirmations. So this is what I have to say about changing the story. You've got to stop blaming your circumstances. That cannot be an excuse and a crutch that you lean on. It's a victim mentality. It's total bullshit. And you got to let go of that shit. You've got to let go of blaming your circumstances. You've got to feel worthy of receiving what you want, because if you don't feel like you deserve it, of course you're going to block it. Of course you're going to block it. And you have to feel safe receiving it. Think about these things. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I would love to hear from you if you're watching the replay. If there's something that you're curious about that I didn't touch on, let me know in the comments and I will definitely get back to you. That's it for today.